Welcome to AHVC Heart Channel, a podcast that explores the wonders of the human heart. I'm your host, Joseph. Today in this episode, we have Dr. Pipin here with us to share about permanent pacemaker, and we are very excited to learn more from you. Welcome, Dr. Pipin.
Hey, thanks, Joseph. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. I'm Dr. Pipin. I'm a cardiologist at Asian Heart and Vascular Center, and among the team, I'm one of two heart electricians.
Okay, Dr. Pipin, my neighbor fainted due to a slow heart rate recently, and he has been advised to have a pacemaker.
Yeah.
Is that common, and how is that dangerous?
So it is quite common, and I think most people don't realize that actually our heart beats is based on a natural pacemaker that we have within our hearts. And this pacemaker starts working when we're about 6 weeks old in our mommy's tummy, and is connected to a set of electrical wires, and based on the battery beating naturally, it gives us our heart rate of about 60 to 80 beats a minute. Our heart will beat about 100,000 times a day. Now, as we get older and older, it is possible that parts of this electrical system will start to fail. And when that happens, our heart rate becomes slower, it can become irregular, and in this state, the patient can feel dizzy, they can feel breathless, or some of them will even black out. Okay. Unfortunately, there's no medicine that we can give to correct a slow heartbeat, and the only way to fix this is to use a pacemaker, and it is used to replace really the function of our natural pacemaker and the wires that are attached to it.
Is it considered as a big operation, and is it dangerous for an elderly person?
To fit a pacemaker is actually quite simple. I consider it very simple surgery. The risk is very low. It's done with a little bit of sedation. Most of the time, the patients can go home either the same day or the next morning. Right. Everybody knows that Singapore is an aging country, so we have quite a lot of senior citizens with us. And so as a result, roughly about 1,500 pacemakers are fitted each year in Singapore. There's a significant number of patients having this, and it is a very common, very routine, and very safe procedure. In fact, we commonly have patients above the age of 100 having pacemakers fitted, because as you get older, the risk of needing a pacemaker becomes higher.
Are there different kind of pacemaker to choose from?
So the traditional pacemaker consists of a battery, and it has wires connected to it. So you can classify pacemakers based on how many wires does it have, right? So all these wires lead from the battery to strategic parts of the heart. And the most basic pacemakers have either one or two wires. Okay. There are some patients who not only have a slow heartbeat, but they also have a weak heart. And so for those patients, they need a special kind of pacemaker. It's called a cardiac resynchronization pacemaker. And these ones have three wires attached to them. So it allows the pacemaker to rebalance the heart and actually to make the heart stronger. So you can classify pacemakers based on those with wires and how many wires you have. The other way of classifying them is that you can say, well, the traditional pacemakers have wires. There are also newer pacemakers that don't have wires. Right? So these are called wireless or leadless pacemakers. And for these, they're literally very, very small. They're about the size of a little bullet, and we put them from the leg directly into the heart. So this battery, which is everything contained within this, doesn't come with any wires. And they both work in the same way to make the heartbeat regular and to prevent the heartbeat from going too slow. Right. So there are pros and cons to using different kinds of pacemakers. And of course, we will discuss that with the patients, and then they will choose the one that is most appropriate for them.
How do we monitor the pacemaker is functioning after it's being implanted?
It's actually very easy to monitor the pacemaker. So nowadays, modern pacemakers are connected via Bluetooth, either to the handphone or a special modem that we give to the patients to be placed at home. The setup allows the pacemaker to transmit technical data about the patient and the device condition to the doctors, either on a regular basis based on the schedule, or if there is an emergency that is detected by the pacemaker. And so without the patient even coming to our clinic, we can actually monitor the pacemaker function and in some part how well the patient is doing. So this entire process is called remote monitoring, and I'm glad to share that actually Singapore is one of the top countries in the world in terms of people taking up remote monitoring. So a large part of our pacemaker patients in Singapore are actually using this system to monitor their devices.
Okay, so after the surgery, any lifestyle changes that the patient needs to take note of? And is there anything that they cannot eat or cannot do?
So not really. I mean, the pacemakers now really allow our patients to lead a very, very normal life. They can certainly travel, they can walk past metal detectors, they can use induction ovens, microwaves, handphone, all kinds of electronic devices, a massage chair, drive, swim, and even undergo an MRI. So as you know, the MRI contains one of the largest magnets in the world, and even that doesn't affect the pacemaker function. And there's certainly no food restrictions of any type, so they can eat anything and drink anything that they want.
Can patients choose not to have a pacemaker?
Well, over time, the heart rate will get slower and slower, and so we expect the patients to feel more unwell, to have more symptoms, to have a higher risk of potentially fainting. And when the heart rate falls below 20 to 30 beats a minute, it can be life-threatening. So we would explain this to the patients and do advise them to have a pacemaker fitted.
So typically, how long does the battery last for, and can patient get a rechargeable one?
Typically, we would expect most pacemaker batteries to last for more than 10 years. So after which we will have to do a small procedure just to change the battery alone. So the wires or the leads that are attached to it, we don't have to change that. Until now, there have been no rechargeable battery available. I think there's a concern that if the patients forget to charge the battery and then the pacemaker doesn't work, then it runs the risk of the patients becoming very sick. So I think the technology has always been based on non-rechargeable but very long-lasting batteries.
So what happened after patient pass away?
So patients who require cremation, which is for the majority of us who live in Singapore, then it is necessary to remove the battery before undergoing cremation. And this is quite a common thing that our undertakers have all been trained to do. So that's the only arrangement that has to be made for pacemaker patients who pass on.
What is the latest advances in pacemaker technology?
So I think over the past 10 years in this field, there are three major advances in pacemaker technology. So the first one I shared with you earlier is this thing called remote monitoring, where basically we can actually monitor the patient even though they don't come to clinic. I think that's a huge technological advancement. The second thing is this wireless or leadless pacemakers. So patients now have a choice. They can have a pacemaker that doesn't come with wires, and there are some certain advantage for certain groups of patients. Then of course the last thing that's a more recent thing is a phenomenon called conduction system pacing. It's a little bit complicated, but essentially we want to put the pacemaker wires or leads strategically into parts of the old electrical highway of the heart. We've discovered that by doing this, we can actually stimulate the heart in the most natural way possible, and this allows the heart to function at its maximum strength and potential. And this is really something that has made pacemakers perform even better for most patients.
I read sometimes that even athletes needs to have a pacemaker fitted after blacking out. Are there more advanced pacemakers that perform different functions?
So I think you're probably referring to something called a implantable defibrillator, right? These are based on pacemaker technology, but certainly more advanced. So what happens is that unfortunately, there's a very, very small group of young, very fit patients who have very rare conditions that makes their heart electrically unstable. So what happens is that very rarely their heart will develop a very dangerous heart rhythm with heartbeats in excess of 200 beats a minute. And this is where they black out and they can be at risk of developing sudden cardiac death. So when they have these ICDs on board, what happens is that the ICD will detect the problem and deliver a life-saving electrical shock. So this shock is called defibrillation, hence the word defibrillator. And this will prevent the athlete from dying. The challenge for us is that the majority of athletes actually don't need this, but how to identify the few athletes who would benefit from this before they have an adverse event happen to them. And so this is some of the things that we're trying to improve on. But certainly you will hear about this from time to time in these sort of very high-profile public figures.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of AHVC Heart Channel. I hope you have learned something new about heart health. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to share this episode with your loved ones. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you, Dr. Pipin.
Thank you.